The Boston Red Sox are worse off as a team without Justin Turner. Why? You'll find out on Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Hurlbut, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, and I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. And honestly, who doesn't love free? You might as well take advantage of it, right? Locked On is here for you every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the show where we are one day closer to spring training. It's really right around the corner now, only a few weeks away, and the Red Sox still have yet to make a majorly impactful move to improve their roster. I'm not saying they won't do that because they still have time, still have a few more weeks until spring training starts. And even in the past, they have signed players during spring training. So there's no guarantee that they won't make another move, but it's looking less and less likely as the days pass and hearing the philosophies of the Red Sox front office and people involved in the organization who are saying, we really trust the guys we have and we believe in their development, which is fine. All for developing guys internally in your system, seeing how they perform and helping to elevate them to the level they need to be at. But if you operate using that mindset all the time, you're taking a lot of risks that everything has to go exactly the way you need it to. One player that the Red Sox have now lost that made such an impact last season was Justin Turner. It was announced that he signed a 1-year, $13 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. The deal also includes $1.5 million in roster and performance bonuses. He loved playing in Boston. He and his wife really embraced what being in Boston is about. He vocalized that he would love to stay in Boston when he was hitting free agency at the end of the season. And he declined the $13.4 million player option for 2024 in his Red Sox contract. So basically that means that if he opts in, he stays. If he opts out, he becomes a free agent. So he opted out and received a $6.7 million buyout from Boston in November. So this makes sense for him because he basically earned an extra $6.2 million by opting out and then signing with Toronto. So for Justin Turner, I'm not upset with him. It makes sense for him to go where the money is, and he is going to significantly impact that Blue Jays clubhouse in the best way possible. Turner turned 39 on November 23rd, and in his season with Boston, he batted .276 with a .345 on base percentage and .455 slugging percentage. Not to mention that also went along with an 800 OPS, 23 home runs, 31 doubles, 86 runs scored, 96 RBIs, 51 walks, and 110 strikeouts in 146 games. That equaled 626 plate appearances for him. He started 98 games at designated hitter, 35 games at first base, 7 games at third base, and 4 games at second base. He really did it all in Boston. And Toronto is getting a guy who's a team first guy, willing to play any position in the infield, willing to DH, and is just going to be a great clubhouse guy. It's upsetting to me that the Red Sox didn't value his presence enough to want to re-sign him. And he vocalized wanting to come back to Boston, and it truly is disappointing to me. I wanted him to come back, if nothing else, for the difference he made in the Red Sox clubhouse. And one of the reasons the Red Sox are worse off without him is because they don't really have a leader in the clubhouse right now who can make that type of difference that Justin Turner made. This Red Sox team, I bet, loses quite a few more games last year if they didn't have Turner there, keeping players on track, helping to elevate the game of Tristan Casas. And Casas absolutely would not be where he is without Turner. And having that Rookie of the Year campaign that Casas had, a lot of credit is due to Turner for helping to push him through the pressure, helping to deliver and maximize his performances to the best it can be. Not every team can say they have a Justin Turner. And when I spoke to a couple people around the Red Sox organization, they said Turner was the best clubhouse leader they've ever had. And think about the absolute legends who have sat in that clubhouse. You can't just replace that. And the Red Sox, being the young team that they are now, need that true number one clubhouse leader, and Turner gave them that. And that's really upsetting that they didn't value that enough, because take away the on-field stuff, but his off-field stuff of just how good of a leader he was is something that goes unnoticed a lot of times and isn't talked about enough, but is so important. The Red Sox need somebody like that, with the fact that they have a lot of young guys still developing and creating their own identity. And they're not going to have that without Justin Turner. Nobody in that current clubhouse has shown me that they have the capability to step into that role. And maybe somebody will, but right now it's not looking likely. So that's a big reason why they're worse off without Justin Turner. Another reason is due to that offensive productivity that I mentioned. I always called Justin Mr. Clutch because in crunch time, he was that guy that you wanted to see at the plate with the bases loaded, the Red Sox down a run with a chance to tie the game or take the lead. I always found myself saying, I want Turner in this spot, or even if they're winning by a run and need an insurance run with a runner on base. Always Turner was the guy I would go to and say, I want to see him up at the plate. That's not something that they've really replaced. And just the offensive productivity in general, he had a fantastic season in Boston. He'll go down as one of the best one-year Red Sox players ever. He just made such an impact in Boston. And yes, he's nearing the end of his career. And for him, I'm sure going to a team that has a chance to win because there's so much talent there is a bonus for him. But the Red Sox haven't formed a lineup yet to me where I can look at it and say they've replaced Justin Turner's productivity, because who's going to provide that much power and diversity at the plate to the point where he's hitting a lot of different types of balls. He's creating things, making things happen, making contact, hitting home runs, hitting singles, hitting doubles, getting on base and scoring runs. He does a lot, and he's a strong overall all-around player for Boston. And not to mention his defense. His defense was super productive while he was in Boston too. And when you look at the full picture here, he really provided a lot of everything that Boston needed. And it's a huge concern to me that the Red Sox, for one, didn't seem like they needed to bring him back in terms of their mentality. They didn't feel like he was the type of player they needed to bring back. And it just concerns me for the reasons of what's their plan for who's going to lead that clubhouse, and what's their plan for replacing his productivity at the plate. Because Justin Turner is a one-of-a-kind player that the Red Sox got for one season and they were lucky to have. And I've been on Team JT since the beginning. I reacted to the signing saying I really liked it when they signed him originally. Never did I expect him to have as good of a season as he actually had, but I really had high hopes for the Red Sox and their willingness to sign him and take a chance on him, because I said this is a proven player who's spent a lot of time in the league and has the experience, and he has the experience to be a very solid leader for this team. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And you just have to look at the full picture here and say they are missing out by not bringing him back. I mean, he was 38 years old doing all this, and that's crazy. I mean, there's just not enough to really say what he did for this team. It was clutch hit after clutch hit, and he just was remarkable. So the Red Sox really will miss him. And that brings me to ask, what's the Red Sox plan now for designated hitter without Justin Turner? I'm going to be touching on that next. Are you huge into sports betting? Is it something that you find yourself constantly wanting to try if you haven't yet? If you answered yes to either of those, FanDuel is the perfect place for you. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. My favorite thing about Super Bowl Sunday is making buffalo chicken dip, ordering wings and pizza, all football related food items, having some friends over, watching the game on the nice TV in the basement, maybe doing some squares to win some prizes, and watching the funny commercials and watching the halftime show. It's all such a fun day. And for this year's Super Bowl, there are a lot of good bets that are going to be out there to add to your fun. And if you're confident, you could totally pick Travis Kelce for a guaranteed touchdown because, I mean, he just broke a record in the AFC Championship games. That's a pretty safe bet to make. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, like I just mentioned, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm a huge fan of FanDuel, no pun intended. It really allows you to make a lot of money if you want to. And also, Locked On has launched the first ever 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. All the hosts of Locked On are there to keep you updated on whatever's going on in sports, no matter what time zone you're in or what you're doing. It doesn't matter. You can keep up with everything if you subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. What does Justin Turner leaving the Boston Red Sox mean for the team? It puts them in a worse spot than they were in before, primarily due to his leadership that he provided and his productivity at the plate. What exactly is the Red Sox plan for replacing him? I don't think they plan on replacing him. And that is a bit of a concern to me. Part of the reason to me why I believe the Red Sox didn't want to bring back Turner isn't as much because they didn't believe that him coming back would make the team better, but I think they believe they would rather handle the designated hitter position differently. Craig Breslow has kind of indicated in some of his comments that he isn't really sold on the idea of having a specific player who's defensively limited play DH. The Red Sox did that for years with, David Ortiz, JD Martinez, Justin Turner. These are all guys who had a lot of success in the Boston Red Sox uniform, just to put it very lightly. And that was their primary position. You knew on most nights that was going to be the guy that was going to come in and DH. And Breslow seems to not feel that exact same way in terms of his philosophy and how he's talking about it. He has said on a high level, we'd probably look to give Alex Cora as much flexibility as possible, recognizing that it's a long season and there will be times when he's going to look to get guys off their feet, but keep their bats in the lineup. I don't think there's one specific way to do it. Obviously, I played with a guy, David Ortiz, who manned the DH spot for quite some time and was pretty successful doing it. Short of that, having as many kind of creative possibilities as we can arrange is what makes sense. So to me, Craig Breslow is very much the type of guy who wants to approach this team as, we don't need to designate one player to something. We would rather rotate guys through, build up a lot of guys' potential to be able to do that one thing, because then down the road, we can pull from a lot of different guys to use in those types of situations. And My problem with that is that could create a lot of chaos for the Boston Red Sox in terms of who's DHing this day, who's going to play in the field this day, and it could throw off the routines of some of these players because, yes, it makes sense every once in a while to have certain guys DH if they're not in the field that day as opposed to being on the bench, making sure they're getting their reps in. That's fine. But if a guy is bouncing around from playing in the field to DHing incredibly regularly, it could throw off his routine if he's not used to doing that. And I think Justin Turner is an exception to that because he's used to playing around, playing a lot of different positions because he played every infield position in Boston except shortstop for a good portion of the season and also had to DH. And you could pretty much put him in those types of spots and he's fine because he's been in the league for so long. But what are they going to try to put that on a guy like Tristan Casas, who's still trying to develop as the team's primary first baseman, as well as improving his plate appearances and trying to get his numbers up so that he can have even a more successful season than he had last year? That's not really fair to put on a guy who's in his second full season in the majors and expect him to have that change of routine all the time. If it were my decision, my preference would be that the Red Sox move Masataka Yoshida to a full-time DH because then you can have an outfield that consists of Jarren Duran in center, Tyler O'Neill out there in right, and then Wilyer Abreu out there in left. And that can be the starting outfield in Boston if you move Masataka Yoshida to DH. And one of the reasons why that makes sense to me right now is because defensively, Yoshida has not been getting it done. Now, I'm not saying he can't improve his defense. There's time for that. I'm sure the Red Sox will work with him on trying to get him more on track defensively. And he was in his first season last year. People have to remember that. And it's not easy to get thrown into the fire in a place like Boston, especially when it comes to playing defense at Fenway. It's a tough place to play baseball in general. And so I'm sure Yoshida needed some time to acclimate. But to me, his bat is where he shines. And his bat is the biggest reason the Red Sox signed him because it was pretty known when the Red Sox signed him that he wasn't the best player defensively. That was a pretty well-known thing in his scouting report. And the reason he was so successful in the Japanese league was because of his bat. And that's the main reason the Red Sox signed him. So if they want their defense to improve overall this year, which they should because defense was a major liability in 2023, then they would think about making Yoshida more of a full-time DH because that'll also create some consistency in the lineup. Last year, I saw a lot of inconsistency and the Red Sox throwing guys into different positions because it's what made sense for them at the time. And then you had the defensive struggles in the infield, so they were forced to shift people around. Why don't they try to do less shifting? Because shifting creates confusion, causes players to be thrown off in their routine, and causes guys to get discouraged sometimes if they're like, well, I've been working so hard at my defensive skills at third base, and now I have to DH a good portion of the time too. It's a good way to create that better sense of unity and say, hey, Yoshida is primarily our designated hitter, and if they have to give Yoshida a rest day, then fine, then have somebody else DH. You have plenty of outfielders where you can make that happen too. Maybe Duran can DH for a day, and then you can swap Yoshida into the outfield with Abreu and O'Neill. The only hesitation with all of that I could see the Red Sox having is that they did sign Yoshida to a pretty big deal in the offseason, and it might be hard for them from their perspective to justify having a guy that they paid that much money for primarily just be a designated hitter because you're basically paying for him to be on the field for half of the role that he generally would have. So the Red Sox might not be for that idea happening, but Yoshida had a pretty good season overall at the plate last year. It wasn't a Justin Turner type season, but the first half of the year, he was definitely making an argument for potentially being named an all-star in his first season. And then in the second half, he started to fall off a little bit. Maybe it was an endurance thing, a stamina thing, because it's a long season, or maybe opposing pitchers were starting to figure him out a little bit. So I have mentioned before, and I'm sure the everydayers on the show here would remember that I've said about Yoshida that he needs to work on the variety of pitches that he's able to hit, because he's primarily a fastball hitter right now. And if he can diversify his skill set a little bit and open up more opportunities for him to hit different types of pitches, then he's going to be a dangerous hitter. And that's something that I'm hoping that he was working on this offseason, and that could help him turn into more of that full-time DH that the Red Sox don't have. And it could help to restore some of that faith from the fan base of, we didn't fully replace Justin Turner's production, but at least there's a contingency plan in place here. So that's what I would like to see them do. I don't think they will do that. Breslow seems sold on this whole idea of rotating position players through as a designated hitter and maybe trying to figure out who is better in that role, who's not as good in that role, hoping some guys can embrace that role and step more into it. So we'll see what happens, but whatever happens this season for the Red Sox could say a lot about their future with the manager. Could Alex Cora be out after the 2024 season? You'll find out next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. For somebody like me who's absolutely clueless about cars, eBay Motors is super helpful for me. So if that's you at all, you should invest in it too. What you also should do is subscribe to Locked On Sports today on YouTube, because we have actually launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. It's super exciting. It basically allows you to get all of the top sports stories of the day from the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows that cover every league. So head to Locked On Sports today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I promise you will not be disappointed. The Boston Red Sox are in a situation where they could have a better season than people think in 2024, or they might not, because there are a lot of things that have to go right in order for the Red Sox to be successful in 2024. They're taking chances on several things, and it's not the ideal approach to the season. Sometimes it's better to get the sure thing in place and sign players who are proven, or trade for players who are proven to help round out your lineup. The Red Sox are not in a situation right now where they're one piece away, so they can't really be trading away all their prospects for a top-notch guy. But they have been in this situation of being in building mode for a few years now, and I'm just wondering when they're going to feel like they're not in building mode anymore. And the question becomes along those lines, does Alex Cora want to be part of a building team long-term? There were a lot of people last year who were saying, fire Alex Cora. He should not be the manager of this Red Sox team. And while I understand the frustration and where that was coming from, you also have to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he had limited assets to work with last year. I mean, the Red Sox pitching staff was a mess in 2023. The starters could not pitch deep into games, so therefore the bullpen was being used in more situations than we would have liked to see them be used in. Guys were being overworked, so Cora had to throw guys in situations that they aren't normally throwing in, and he had to try to put all the pieces in place to make it work. Now, I'm not saying Alex Cora is perfect as a manager, but he's certainly overall a good manager that the Red Sox are lucky to have. And the problem with all of this is the more that the Red Sox are unsuccessful, the more Alex Cora is going to get frustrated with the roster that he's given. If this year ends up being a similar situation to last year, I 100% could see Cora walking away and saying, I can't deal with this. I don't have the patience to be part of a team that has been in rebuild mode for the last 4 years, and they're not really giving me a chance to work with a talented roster. Look what he did in 2018. I mean, that roster was incredibly talented with so many guys in their prime on that team. But you need a manager to be able to lead a team like that. And Alex Cora is a manager who can lead teams. And one thing about Alex Cora that I really like that stands out about him is his ability to be a player's manager. And Jonathan Papelbon came on my show the other day and actually said something similar about him. It's so important that the manager is able to connect with each player on the team on an individual basis. And I feel like Alex Cora does such a good job of that. You could tell by the way the guys talk about him in the locker room and in press conferences that they really value Cora as a manager and they enjoy playing for him. And that's an important thing when you're trying to field a competitive team, is having a manager who can create a winning culture and keep guys on track. And at the end of last season, the players definitely had lost interest because they knew they weren't going to be a playoff team. And I think at that point they were just counting down the days until the offseason started. But Alex Cora also was checked out towards the end because how much could he have really done? What would have been the point of trying to keep people in a mindset of winning when the damage had already been done? And I think Cora was at the point where he said, there's not really much I can do anymore. And it's not fair to him because he's going to take a lot of the blame if the Red Sox have a season like they had last year. But the reality is, as a manager, you work with what you're giving. Alex Cora does not make the decisions on personnel and who the Red Sox are bringing in to be on this roster and play baseball every day. Alex Cora is not the one going out there and negotiating with other teams to try to work out trades or work out free agent deals. Alex Cora is not the one out there on the business side of baseball, nor should he be, or nor should he need to have knowledge of that. His job is on the field and managing the team in the clubhouse and in the dugout. And he's great at that job. He's a very knowledgeable baseball mind, and being a manager in professional baseball is so difficult. I can't even imagine. And the types of decisions he has to make on a daily basis are challenging. But nobody knows those guys better than him because he's around them every day. So the next time that you're questioning a decision that he makes in terms of who he's putting in what spot, just remember that last year he had a lot of limited resources, guys being overworked. So he was putting guys in roles that we as fans wouldn't normally see them in and didn't always approve of. But the main reason I think Alex Cora could leave at the end of this upcoming season, if the Red Sox have another frustrating year, is because he seems like he might be mentally checked out a little bit to the Red Sox front office. And there were a couple moments last year where I felt like he was trying to just say, look at what's happening here. There's not much I can do. And if I'm Alex Cora, I want to get a managing job with a winning team that has the potential to go all the way, and a team who is showing me as an organization that they want to set me up for the most success that they possibly can. And right now, it's not seeming like the Red Sox care about putting Alex Cora or anybody on his coaching staff in an easy position to be a successful team overall. So the Red Sox really have to think about that when it comes to the rest of this offseason. Put in the effort. Show that you care about Alex Cora being your manager and you appreciate him being here, by giving him the talent that he could use to allow his guys to be able to succeed and allow the team to be competitive so that he can actually go back to enjoying managing that team. And you can always see how excited the Red Sox dugout is when they go up big in a game or somebody gets a big hit or hits a home run. Cora's always the first one right up there, giving everybody a high five and making sure that it's a good vibe. And that's the type of manager I want managing my team. If you take away the off field stuff for a second and just how he's able to create that sense of camaraderie among the guys, he also overall knows what he's doing on the field. And he's been in the baseball world for a long time. And it's tough to justify letting Alex Cora go or wanting him to leave because of the situation he was put into the last couple seasons. So I could totally see him walking. This needs to be a better season for the Red Sox if they want him to stay. I think he's starting to get fed up with it. He definitely wants the team to have a better season this upcoming year, and I'm not so confident that they will, but if a lot of things go right, they will. So let's just hope a lot of things go right. As always, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.